Hi, I'm Fran Arsenault, and I'm introducing Article 21, which is a home rule petition for the Acton Housing Authority. It's for a bidding requirements exemption. So let's start with what is a home rule petition. In Massachusetts, cities and or towns have limited powers under state law. A home rule petition is a request from a city or a town for a new type of power from the state legislature. For example, the power to enact a new tax or regulation, or an exemption from an aspect of state law. A majority vote is needed from the town to authorize the Acton Select Board to petition the Massachusetts General Court to enact legislation, and further to authorize the Select Board to approve amendments to said legislation before its enactment by the General Court that are within the scope of the general objectives of this motion, or take any other action relative thereto. A yes vote would allow the Select Board to petition the Mass General Court to enact legislation which would exempt the McManus Manor, Acton Housing Authority's Main Street Affordable Senior Housing project from the extensive procurement processes under Chapter 149, particularly those related to file sub-bids for the contracting on the project. The provision is very important to assure that this project, which will benefit from low-income housing tax credits as well as other state and local financing programs, is able to compete with other low-income housing tax credit projects, which are not undertaken by public housing authorities. The final clause states that the exemption from Chapter 149 does not apply to sections of the law which provide for certain preferences in hiring and wage rates. Referring to a study that was done in 1999 by the Pioneer Institute, the Chapter 149 provision that requires public agencies to open filed subcontractor bids for each trade on vertical projects and furnish them to general contractors for use in the preparation of their bids for the general contract, thus preventing the formation of strategic relationships among general contractors and subcontractors. The impact of Chapter 149 is twofold. First, it further increases the cost of design by forcing the designer to prepare additional construction documents so that each trade subcontractor has a standalone package on which to bid. Second, it creates an adversarial environment between the general contractor and the subcontractors, which leads to greater numbers of change orders and corresponding delays, which raise costs further. Their study identified that this provision adds 30% to the construction costs. And here's links to Massachusetts general law. And the general objective of continuing on, except for disposition of the property to an entity owned, controlled, or managed by the AHA, any disposition would subject to the public procurement procedures of Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, which involves certain public advertising requirements. The exemption from Chapter 30B will allow AHA to deal with the property as needed under the low-income tax credit program without having to address the requirements of Chapter 30B. Many housing authorities, which include towns such as Boston, Brookline, Chelmsford, Chelsea, Taunton, and Somerville, have utilized this type of exemption from Chapter 149 in the construction of their low-income housing tax credit financed redevelopment projects. And here, in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30B of the Uniform Procurement Act establishes uniform procedures for local governments to use when buying or disposing of supplies, services, or real property. I hope you vote yes on Article 21 at town meeting.